Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching or listening to this. And welcome to Link Up Leaders, your direct link to leaders in supply chain and e commerce. My name is Lisa Kinski. I'm your producer and co host, and joined as always by Francois Jeffrey. Francois, good morning. Happy Friday. How are you?
Happy Friday. I'm doing great right before Memorial Day. How about you?
Awesome. Good. And I'm very trying so hard to be productive on this Friday before Memorial Day.
Any
It is
plans?
hard. My only plans. So I'm still house sitting up until tomorrow.
Okay.
They're gonna come back tomorrow. So just more of hanging out with the bird and the dog and going to the gym and doing whatever. On Sunday, actually, I got my mom tickets to go to the Gwinnett County. I don't know if it's Gwinnett County. Anyway, where our office is in Duluth, it's in somewhere called Gwinnett for anybody listening. They're having a hot air balloon festival. So for Mother's Day, I got her tickets to
Oh,
do that. We're gonna do a tethered hot air balloon ride. Um,
that is awesome. You're gonna have to
yeah,
send some snaps and
I
pictures. Let me know
will.
how that is.
I will. I definitely will. It looks like a ton of fun. It starts at 3 and then it like goes into the evening. So we're doing that on Sunday. That's going to be fun. And then Monday, as we discussed with our previous guest, I will just be by the pool. I will be by any body of water I can find. And that is where I will be all day on Monday and then back in the office on Tuesday. So yeah,
Yes.
it'll
Yeah.
be good to
Yeah.
go
No
back.
parrot. We can't hear the parrot today.
Shh.
What's her name?
Her name is Zelda.
Okay. Zelda. Right. Right. Zelda's taking a little nap today, huh?
She's, you know what? You know what? It looks like she's doing a little bit of a bath right now. She's doing a little bit
Okay.
of cleaning, but she
Yeah.
was oh, I upset her earlier. I was filming reels and I had to move the lamp. And when I moved it out, she was fine. And when I moved it back, because it
Mm.
sits kind of like next to her cage, she lost her mind. And then the dog lost her mind. And I was like, can everybody calm down? I moved a lamp. We are on
Yeah.
high alert today for whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah, I imagine. I mean, like we said so many times this week, that bird is so smart. I feel like they're just like,
She's so
you don't
fucking
need to
smart.
move things without my permission
Oh,
first."
yeah. Well, and she hates the vacuum, as most
Mm,
animals do.
yeah.
And when you have birds, I guess, like, you're supposed to keep them as much on, like, sun up, sundown schedule as possible. Um, but because of the artificial light in homes, I guess you call it artificial light, whatever, you have to cover their cages.
Mhm.
So she hates that blanket. I've learned that. I go to pull that thing up and she's like chasing it around the side of the cage trying to bite at it. She hates that thing.
Yeah.
But other than that, she's a super smart bird. She's a pretty chill bird. She was making screaming cat noises earlier today though,
Yeah.
which her mom warned me about. She's like, "Oh, at least she's making the cute ones." Like,
Yeah.
the
The
opening
phone
beer
noises
cans and
and
the phone
yeah.
noises and whatever. And then earlier today she was screaming like a cat, either in a like a cat in a dryer or like a cat in heat or just
Oh,
non-fun sounds.
geez.
It was
Yeah.
awful. I was like, "Please don't do that later
Screeching.
today."
Yeah.
But how goes the packing? I know that we have been kind of putting it off a little bit to maybe not wanting to tackle it.
Yeah, yeah, doing that this weekend. I mean, today is a big day for Kate and for any Star Wars fans out there because Obi-Wan comes out today. I don't know on what. I think on
Oh.
Disney Plus. And you said that very disappointingly. But I'm not a
I thought there
huge,
was
Star
something.
Wars
Well,
fan,
you said
but
it's a big day for Kate. I was like, "Oh, what's happening?" I was excited for her, and then you said Star Wars. I was like, "Oh, who gives a shit?" That's
it's important to
a
her,
lot of
so it's
people
a big
do.
day for her. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they're coming out today, so it's a good day, I guess. We've been rewatching all the old Star Wars. I think yesterday we just finished up episode 3. We're not going to get through all of them, obviously, but
Aw.
just to get some catch up with Obi-Wan before it comes out today, and she got like little lightsabers that she just ordered from Amazon,
Aw.
and we're gonna have a few friends over to watch for like a little watch party sort of thing. So
Okay.
it's gonna be a great Friday evening.
That's cute. Now
Yeah.
is this like another I know very little about the universe,
Yeah.
um, but is it
Oh, don't ask me. I
another
have no clue.
Mandalorian? Oh, no. Is this just
I
like a how many shows are they gonna
I have no clue.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm the wrong person to ask. Kate can tell. She can definitely
gotcha.
tell you
I'll
more.
have to ask her. Or maybe our guest knows. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah,
You and
let's
I
ask
are
him.
kind of in the minority, I feel like, of
Yeah.
like not being big Star Wars people.
Yeah.
So between 3 people, there has to be at least one of us. So let's see. So today's leader of the day is Michael Epstein, calling in from San Diego. Michael, how are you?
I'm already going to be a disappointment to the podcast.
Oh
no! It's okay.
I am not a huge Star Wars fan. I have seen most of them, but I am going to add no value to that conversation whatsoever.
That is okay. That just means that
yeah.
we're on the same playing field then.
Exactly.
Yep. Because that's kind of how I prefer things. If people are like super into Star Wars and they get really jazzed up about it, it's hard for me because I'm not one of those people who can kind of like, unless it's a child. Like I have 10 nieces and nephews. Everybody knows this now. But like if one of my little babies is excited about something, man, I'm all about it. Let's do it. But if it's an adult, I can't like fake my excitement about something like that. And then they get all disappointed. So it's just easier if I'm around like-minded individuals. Same with sports. Poor Jack, anytime he comes into my office and he's so excited about something an Atlanta United player did or something someone did, he's like, da, da, da. I'm like, who are these people? Why does it matter? It does nothing for me. This does nothing for you. You don't even know them. He's like, but it's a big deal. I'm like, all right, sugar, whatever floats your boat. But Michael, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. The weather that we can see looks fantastic. We're always jealous of our guests in these sunny beach towns.
Yes, we are.
But you're originally from Florida, right? How did you get to be in San Diego?
Originally from Washington, D.C. area, then Florida,
right.
then San Diego. And San Diego cannot complain about the weather. It's pretty much like this every day. So we pay for it with our taxes. And but it's all good. As you said, originally from the D.C. area and moved down to Florida after I started my first company. We sold that in 2013.
What industry was that in? Was that also in e-commerce?
E-commerce, yeah.
Okay.
So started a retailer and manufacturer of computer accessories. Started that actually out of my college dorm room. Ran that for 13 years. We grew it and sold it to private equity. Got into private equity operating work and was running a bunch of e-commerce portfolios for different private equity funds. And that's what actually got me out to San Diego. We acquired a company called Auto Anything, which was a 9-figure aftermarket retailer of automotive accessories, carve out from AutoZone. It was their e-commerce entity, and that was headquartered in San Diego, and that's what got me out here.
Gotcha. Very interesting. Very interesting. And then tell us about PostPilot. Did I get that name right? Yes, PostPilot. I wanted to flip it in my head. I was like, that's not right. PostPilot. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so PostPilot is a direct mail automation platform for e-commerce and direct-to-consumer brands. If you're familiar with Klaviyo, if you're an e-commerce brand, so many of you are on Klaviyo, which is your email platform that sends campaigns and automated flows that are segmented and triggered, like customer buys X, now send them this sequence. We basically built Klaviyo for postcards. And so we had been using direct mail successfully, myself and my business partner, at all the private equity companies that we've been working with, all the e-commerce brands that we have been operating, but it was just a clunky experience. It was exporting a bunch of spreadsheets. It was finding a print house, then mailing a big batch of cards to a giant audience, and then trying to use more spreadsheets to figure out what the ROI on that campaign was. And we said somebody should make this as easy as email. And so that's what we did. We actually acquired the company when it was still in its infancy. And the original founder is still on board. He's our CTO. And we'd helped grow that, invested in it, built a team around that company. And as we were kind of leading one of the portfolios that we were running to an exit, we were looking at ourselves, and this company had been like a rocket ship, and saying like, we've got to go all in on PostPilot and make sure it reaches its full potential. So that's what we've been doing.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't want to skip over, because that's a long time being in e-commerce, and watching it grow from basically its infancy to what it is today is insane. Can we talk a little bit about your e-commerce experience starting out from the dorm, and sort of where you started. Did you have your own website? And we could definitely have that progress into, direct mail automation, I think.
Sure, totally. So yeah, it's been over 20 years, crazy enough. And so we started in 2000 was when I launched my first company. I think it was on Miva Merchant, if anyone even has heard of that or remembers. I think it still exists today. But I don't know if anybody uses it, but yeah, that was like cutting edge. I mean, of course, there was no Shopify 20 years ago. There's no big commerce. And so this was, in the early days of e-commerce, we built a website. We really grew using a strategy that would now be known as influencer marketing. And at the time, that was like just the only thing we knew how to do to get the word out, because there was no Google AdWords, there was no Facebook, there wasn't even, email was like a thing, but it wasn't anywhere close to where it is today. So this was in the days of people setting up their personal blogs and those or websites around specific topics. And so there were a lot of computer blogs and gaming blogs and things like that. Again, I don't even think they were called blogs at the time. They were like websites. And so we ended up kind of growing. We went from 0 to $1 million. We started with $0 and $500 out of our pocket and did $1 million in our first year and continued to grow it to tens of millions in sales, just kind of hustling and growing along with kind of e-commerce and the internet, and starting to leverage the tools as they came out. We were first on Google AdWords, but before that it was Overture, I think was the company that first did pay per click bidding on search. It was like a Yahoo company, and that predated Google AdWords. And so just kind of seeing all the evolution in e-commerce has been crazy. And it's crazy that it's been 20 years. Exited that company in 2013. It never intended to hold it as long as we did, but we went through the 2008 recession when we were originally thinking about exiting, and had to kind of buckle up for a couple of years to ride that out, and ended up exiting in 2013. And that's when really got into this private equity operating work, where a lot of funds had portfolios of 8 and 9 figure brands. In a lot of cases, they were acquired because they were underperforming. And that's typically where we came in. My business partner and I met around that time, and we came in to help mostly turn these companies around. So they didn't understand e-commerce. They didn't understand direct to consumer. A lot of them were built on legacy kind of brick and mortar retail brands. So it wasn't their DNA. They didn't understand it. And we would come in and help them really execute an e-commerce and direct to consumer strategy and grow that side of the business.
What a concept to start an e-commerce business in 2000, because weren't all the computers and everything supposed to like implode or whatever? What was that?
The Y2K
scare.
Right. Totally. And still in college too. And this was like, I remember we were bumping up against graduation, and this was one of those scenarios where the parents were like, I'm not supporting you after this. So if this doesn't work, you're on your own here. And so that was a little extra motivation.
Oh, I bet it was. And did the college know that you were running this business out of your dorm room? Did they care? Because I feel like nowadays universities, at least where I went, wouldn't. Oh, my school wouldn't have taken very kindly to that. Because the dorms are super, super tiny, and Kennesaw wants as much money out of you as possible. So they would have wanted a cut of every sale that you did. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I don't think they would have known the difference.
No. Well, and what was your role within all that? Because it seems like, obviously, being with the company that you're with now, it's very heavily in marketing. Were you heading up marketing of the e-commerce business back then, and then going into private equity? Were you the one that was auditing sort of these companies and seeing where they could turn around their marketing?
Yeah, primarily on the sales and marketing side. So always had been kind of a digital and performance marketer. in all of these roles. When we came in to the different portfolio companies, it was typically on that implementing best practice marketing, like lifecycle marketing and email, optimizing their paid spend across different paid channels, and then implementing direct mail in a lot of cases as well. So it was always in that focus more on the marketing side. And in this last company that we ran, we acquired this company, Auto Anything. It was a 9-figure aftermarket automotive retailer, which was a carve out from AutoZone. It was their kind of digital flagship, but they didn't know what to do with it. So it was in pretty sharp. They had acquired it a number of years earlier, but it was stagnating and then started declining rapidly, but it was still a big company. And so we came in with the private equity fund, acquired that in 2018. And it was really just a big turnaround at that point. So focused again, just on the digital marketing side, one, streamlining the business operationally, but then really implementing best practices on the marketing side to turn that business around and ultimately get it growing again.
And with doing that, what sort of challenges do you see that these companies face as you're trying to implement, for example, best practices?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's so many challenges. Everything in that case, everything from legacy tech stack, which we've seen not only in that entity, but in lots of entities. Again, these were companies that were pretty big companies and had been around for a long time. A lot of them were operating on tech stacks that were all custom built in-house. Again, they predated Shopify. They predated off-the-shelf kind of tools for e-commerce. And so a lot of it was, just trying to peel back the onion on some of this stuff, figure out what they had going on, start migrating onto more point solutions and off-the-shelf tools like a Shopify, like a BigCommerce, like a Klaviyo, implement those kinds of tools, and then start building out lifecycle marketing campaigns. Again, this was something that wasn't really on the radar of most people, most of these brands. It wasn't native to them. It wasn't their DNA. They didn't understand necessarily these concepts. They understand email, but in some cases you ask, and they were, some of these portfolio companies, you'd say, oh yeah, I think we've been collecting emails for years, but I don't know that we've ever actually sent to them. And I'm like, you have 600,000 email addresses. Like, what have you been doing?
Sitting on gold here.
Yeah, right. And so everything from that to, oh yeah, we kind of have someone that runs email and they run our social, and they get to stuff when they can, and really putting in true direct to consumer strategies, looking at their paid spend. Again, a lot of them just didn't know the right questions to ask because it wasn't their background, it wasn't what they knew, it wasn't what their expertise. And so in a lot of cases, they'd hire different agencies. They wouldn't be able to give them great direction because they didn't, again, know what they were, what questions to ask or what best practices even looked like. And so we would come in and really help overhaul those channels, those strategies, and get the company executing again and on a path to growth and profitability.
Gotcha. And you've mentioned a few times this concept of lifecycle marketing. I'm sure there is a lifestyle marketing, but lifecycle marketing. Can you sort of tell us what that is? And that way we can see how direct mail really plays into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So customers all have a life cycle, right? They go from pre-purchase to purchase to post-purchase. And so there are different stages of the buying journey and different stages of the customer journey, and you have to deliver the right message to them at the right time. And that's kind of the very high level concept of lifecycle marketing. So if you've captured them as a lead, so for example, an email, you've captured their email address, but they haven't purchased from you. What are the types of campaigns you're going to deliver to them, whether it's through an email campaign, whether it's through a custom audience on Facebook and showing them a certain message that's going to nurture them towards becoming a customer. and they might be top of funnel pre-purchase. So they're just learning about, they might not even know you exist. You need to educate them on who you are, what you do, what the benefits are to them of buying from you, to lower funnel. So they're pretty convinced that they're ready that you're the right solution, you're the right product for them. But now we need to get them to pull the trigger. And then once they make the purchase, what are we going to do to keep them buying from us again? And I think that's the most often overlooked piece of it. And also typically the most important piece of it is the post-purchase experience, because a lot of people think that you get the customer, great, I'm done. I did my job. Now they're just going to probably come back and buy from us. Hopefully we're going to cross our fingers. And that often is not the case, but it's the most important thing, especially now, because customer acquisition costs are through the roof. It's harder and harder to reach customers today because of iOS updates. They're not opening your email campaigns because they've got 140 emails a day that are often ignored or deleted. It's harder to reach them on Facebook, again, because of the iOS updates, making tracking and targeting more difficult. But all these things are driving up customer acquisition costs, which means that, like, the dirty little secret of e-commerce and direct-to-consumer brands today is that many of them can't even be profitable on the first purchase, because when you factor in cost of goods, which is also going up from inflation, you factor in marketing costs, and then you take your operational overhead, you're not left with much. And in some cases, you're negative on that customer acquisition. So the profit is all coming from that retention side, the post-purchase experience, when you're getting the customers to buy that second and third and fourth time from you, because you're not paying the customer to acquire that customer again. And kind of as it pertains to direct mail, we always say start there. A lot of people have a perception of direct mail saying, yeah, that's just blasting everybody in a zip code with an offer, or every household income with this, we're just going to hit them with an offer. That's a really tough thing to do, and really expensive and hard to get a great ROI. But where you can get a killer ROI, the low-hanging fruit, is to start that kind of the other side of the life cycle that we were talking about, is the post-purchase and the retention side. The customers that have bought from you, and in a lot of cases bought from you multiple times, but then stopped buying from you for whatever reason. If you can automatically trigger a campaign to go out to them, if they've stopped buying, they haven't exhibited the behavior that you expect from that customer, trigger a card to go out. It's reaching the 80+% of your customers that aren't engaging with your digital marketing, like email and Facebook ads. And you're getting them to come back and buy again for less than the cost of a click. Like, that's a very profitable, very low-hanging fruit opportunity for brands today to keep customers buying, drive a lot higher profitability, and loyalty with their customers.
And you took my question, which was, at what stage of the customer lifecycle should they be using direct mail marketing? Where is it most effective? But you've definitely answered it. But when you're talking about kind of this, like, send a mailer to everybody in a zip code, I can see, just as somebody who's received those, because I have a mailbox, that it would be really hard to get any kind of return on that. Because if I get something out of my mail that says current resident at, and then my address, I'm immediately like, no, you don't know, this immediately does not pertain to me. This is going in the trash or the recycling. It's like, no, goodbye. So, and I imagine a lot of other people do that as well. Is that like the reason that it's so hard, because it's not able to be personalized in that way?
It's personalized, and it's not personalized, and it's not targeted necessarily. So you don't know these brands in most cases, and you haven't demonstrated that you have any intent to buy from these brands. Like, are you in the market for men's grooming products? Probably not. So, but I think there's two key points to that. One is, yes, the targeting and personalization of it is critical. And we're a native Shopify app, so we can individually personalize each one of the cards that you get and segment the audience and trigger it just like an email flow. So we can say, Lisa, you bought from us, you bought a pair of jeans. you did not come back within 30 days to make another purchase, on day 31, trigger a card that says, "Hey, Lisa, hope you love your jeans. Here's an offer for 10% off a matching t-shirt for you." Or you could say, "Lisa, you just bought a 30-day supply of supplements, but you didn't come. We know that you ordered a 30-day supply, but you didn't come back in 35 days. And you've probably been getting email campaigns from that brand, but you haven't come back, but we expect you to come back. And so on day 35, trigger the card that says, 'Hey, Lisa, get back on track. Here, remember all the benefits you got from our supplements. Here's an offer to come back and make sure that you get back on track.'" So that sort of personalization and targeting and timing is critical. But also there's one other kind of interesting point. You said when you got that piece of mail, you still looked at it before you made a decision to throw it in the trash. And that's the other kind of interesting thing about direct mail. In a lot of cases with email and other ads, you're completely ignoring them, right? You are deleting them before you open them. You don't even see them because they're in you're in your promo tab in Gmail. So you're not even seeing them. With direct mail, you're not just blindly throwing everything in the mailbox away without looking at it.
No, what if there's a check in there? What if there's
Exactly. So you're skimming it. And when you see something from a brand, to your point, if it's not personalized and you don't know anything about this brand, you're probably looking at it and then quickly discarding it. If it's from a brand that you know and you've done business with, you're probably looking at it and actually seeing what it says. And so in that case, again, that's why it gets such higher engagement than email and digital channels, because it's less common. It's more surprising and delightful to the customer that receives it, particularly when it's from a brand that they know. And they're actually at least looking at it and reading it, which is more than you can say for most of the digital campaigns that you're sending them. So that's why it just gets higher engagement today.
That's true. That's a very good point. I hadn't considered that, actually. That's interesting.
It's like sending an opened email, I guess, in this case, just a physical opened email.
Right.
A guaranteed to be opened email.
Guaranteed to be opened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so how I think a lot of companies might be thinking, how do you set up attributions, right? From getting a direct mail campaign going, particularly one, let's say, similar to Klaviyo, where you have those automated triggers. You can't necessarily rely on this being the only campaign going out there. How do you attribute that direct mail to a purchase?
Great question. So the way that we do it is a few ways. So one, we know that if you are on Shopify, we're natively integrated with Shopify, and that allows for real-time tracking of responses. So we know when that customer received the card. We know if they go on to make a subsequent purchase. We know if they use a coupon code that is on that card, and we can attribute all of that back to the card that they received automatically, again, because we're integrated with Shopify, and show you the ROI in real time right on the dashboard. It's not, again, the spreadsheets and matchbacks. If you've done direct mail in the past, it's a very tedious process to get attribution. And in this way, it's all automated. It's very clear. And you can use either a static code on the card, or you can use a single-use code, meaning each customer receives their own personalized, unique code that can't be used over again. So those are the main ways that we do attribution. But then we see a lot of interesting other things like putting QR codes on the card. That's kind of a best practice now. COVID brought QR codes back from
everything.
Oh yeah,
menus,
everything. I remember when I used to see a QR code pre-COVID, and I was like, "What is this shit? Just give me the website."
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
because you used to have a separate app to be able to read the QR codes, and now they've done the updates on the phones where it's just through your camera. It's so much easier now. Now it's expected.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're totally right. And now you can put that right on the card. And so if somebody gets it, they immediately can scan it with their mobile phone, and you can do really interesting things aside from even embedding UTM parameters so that you can track that as well. But you can send them easily to a dedicated landing page. You could even send them right back to their cart if it's an abandoned cart campaign. So it's a really great way to reduce friction especially with the physical postcard, it makes it super easy to get them right back to wherever you want them to go on the site without putting some giant URL on the card and expecting them to go there. So that's another way to kind of get more data around the effectiveness of the card. But the main ways are just because we know that that customer received the card and then went on to make a purchase, and we know if they used a coupon code that was on the card.
This is fascinating to me. And I kind of want to know, I'm not sure how much you can share. We don't want to give away the farm here, but how does this work like on the back end? Is there just a man furiously writing labels and sticking them to the right postcards out of different piles and throwing them in the mail? Or, I mean, I have to imagine you guys are sort of regionalizing that's not a word, using print shops in different regions. Well, I'm trying to think, like, you don't want to ship everything out of San Diego because marketing is time sensitive, right? Like, especially on the subscription model with perhaps not subscription, the 30-day supplement. If it's after day 35, you don't want to send them something in the mail and hit them at day 42 because the USPS takes forever. So, I mean, how does this kind of work on the back end? Like, what's the secret sauce?
Yeah, so we have our own commercial printing facility in South Carolina. But we also work with a network of printing providers as well, so that we can direct where it needs to go. But a lot of it does come out of our centralized facility in South Carolina. And again, they're individually personalized. That's a key aspect of it. So you're not sending giant batches all at once. These are literally printed on demand, so one at a time, and that's why each card can be personalized. But yeah, because with our Shopify integration, we're able to trigger these cards and then route them to our facility or another facility if we need to, and print them as soon as that customer meets that criteria. To your point, you don't want these big delays, and that's another problem. If you're mailing in big batches, you're having to wait until you get a whole 30-day file of customers and then send it off to somebody, and then they run a bunch of cards and then they print it out. This is like, if I want to target, if Lisa meets the criteria right now, as soon as she meets that criteria, it triggers the card to be printed, and it's out in the mail typically that same day. And then they're getting it within a few days.
Okay.
And what would you say to the business owners or brand owners that say this is just an antiquated model, that it's something that, hey, especially, 10, 15 years ago, you were getting piles, like thick piles of mail, and you weren't looking at any of them. I guess, what's the counter argument to that?
Yeah, I think it's what's old is new again, right? So one, it's being done in a very different way. As we talked about, e-commerce and direct to consumer is our DNA. That's been my career. It's been the career of the core team that built PostPilot. And so we built it in a way that completely modernizes how you think about direct mail. Like, forget what you know and think about direct mail, because again, it's typically what comes to mind is a bunch of spreadsheets and blasting it to a bunch of random people. And then trying to figure out what the ROI was. This is, if you think about it as sending an email campaign or an email flow, like, that's just a very different way of executing the channel. And then the other thing is, to your point, now it's flip-flopped, right? It used to be that your email inbox was the pristine place that only the important messages came through, and you paid attention to everything. And your mailbox was, like you said, stuff with a bunch of junk that you would throw away. Now it's just really flip-flopped. Your email is where you're almost ignoring most of the things that come in. It's cluttered, it's noisy. And direct mail is, and studies show this as well, it's perceived more like a gift, because when it's from a brand that because you're just not used to it anymore. Now you see something physical from a brand, it kind of generates more of a surprise and delight experience versus an email that you're just getting blasted with all the time. So now it's just so much more it's so much more unique and delightful to receive a piece of physical direct mail from a brand that That's why it has such higher engagement now than digital channels.
Yeah, what's old is new. The 90s are back, baby, in every way. The 90s are back. But
Yeah, I love to see it.
I want to talk too about the actual like creative, the design of these postcards, because there's some limitations obviously to physical mail. You know, we don't have the newspapers and Harry Potter yet. That's where I will get a little nerdy. You know, you can't have little gifs and videos on paper yet. Whereas email, you can have video, you can have gifs, you can have, kind of whatever, but you also have the limitation of if the ESP or the ISP doesn't like your subject line, then it's going to go immediately to spam. So like, what are some of the creative advantages of using the direct mail? And then what are some of the best practices when you're designing these postcards?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's a visual medium. So think of it similarly to how you would think of a Facebook ad or display ad. So should be instantly recognizable, well branded, on brand. So to the point earlier, when you're taking it out of the mailbox, and you're skimming through what's in there, you should immediately recognize that it's from a brand that they know and have done business with. The logo should be clear, the color scheme and color palette should be familiar. Use assets that are familiar to the customer, and then clear and concise message. So don't write a book on it. Make sure it's succinct and clear and direct, like you would on a digital ad. Use personalization. That's key, drives much higher engagement and feels just much more personalized and relevant, where we can greet somebody by their name or other attributes about them that can be dynamically embedded into the card. Use QR codes like we talked about. So reduce the friction to come back to the website or a dedicated landing page or place on your site that you want to send them, and use an incentive. So create that urgency, give them a reason to come back and buy, particularly because you're targeting folks that haven't executed the behavior that you expected in the first place. You've already been hitting them with email campaigns, maybe SMS campaigns, Facebook and retargeting campaigns, and they haven't responded, right? So you want to give them a compelling reason to act now. Set an expiration date. We can actually do that dynamically. So again, because these are individually personalized, we can say set expiration date for 7 days or 30 days post receipt, meaning you don't have to constantly be updating a coupon code on the back end to extend that date or change it. It just creates urgency by saying this offer expires on 7 days from today and inserts that date. So create urgency, clear call to action, and those are kind of that's what generally makes for a really good postcard campaign.
I've always wondered how that's done, because I've gotten specifically from I can't think of the name of it, but it's some sort of monthly wine club. I haven't joined one yet, but they're going to get me. But they have these coupons of I don't know, $100 off your first case of wine or whatever, valid for 90 days after receipt. And in my head, I'm like, how do you know when I got this? What if I just want to, what if I find it in a drawer a year from now because I tucked it away? And then I'm like, oh, I definitely got this last week. I always thought you could just kind of fib that. Not gonna lie.
The secret is you may still be able to use that code. It may have just been a date that they put on it to create the urgency, but that's okay. I mean, you still ultimately, if you find it a year later, that's the other interesting thing about direct mail that you don't get with digital is because it's often still sitting on a table. It has a much longer lifespan than a digital ad. Average lifespan of a postcard is 17 days versus 2 minutes for an email campaign. So
that makes sense.
It's because it's often sitting in that drawer or on a desk or on the kitchen counter or something like that. And it's constantly staring at you. And then at some point you pull the trigger on it. It just hits you at the right time. And then you pull the trigger. So if I were the brand that sent you that wine card and you came back a year later and that postcard just happened to be sitting in a drawer and it got you to come back and buy, awesome. I'm happy to let you take advantage of the coupon. I just got you back as a customer. So, and at that point, you were totally gone, right? You were completely defected from that brand. It had been a year. You were not like, that card got you to come back and make that purchase. So I'm happy to have you at that point.
That's awesome. I'm gonna go
And
look through my drawers.
so, yeah,
I gotta go through the
I
mail.
gotta clear out. I have a bunch of drawers to clear out my island right now.
You're probably gonna be finding a bunch of these cards as you do your packing.
I think so. I think so. We're already starting to find some. Exactly.
Yep.
Those and like furniture from when we first moved here, like 4 years ago, that we were totally going to use these. Maybe on the next move.
Totally.
So, what's the cost benefit here? I think when we're looking at all these different marketing channels that we really want to execute on, you're looking at typically what has the best ROI, right? I guess, what can we tell brand owners or marketers when they are considering direct mail? How much is it going to cost them? What can they expect to get back in conversions?
Sure. So our target, one, you're paying typically less than the cost of a click now, because again, competition continues to drive up digital ad costs. So postcard now costs less than the cost of a click. It's 49 cents per card. That's all in, including postage and everything. And because they're targeted, you're not wasting a bunch of spend on a bunch of random people that you don't think have a high intent to buy. We set up our campaigns with the expectation that we should get 6 to 10x ROAS, return on ad spend, for minimum for a campaign that we send. Like, that's our internal goal, because we know that you get that, you're going to be super happy. Typically, we do a lot better than that. So, for example, we just ran a campaign for a popular direct-to-consumer men's grooming brand called Beard Brand, and they targeted 6-month-old customers who were unsubscribed to their email list. So these are people that are long gone. They've not, like, men's grooming products you're typically buying in regular cycles, right? 30 or 60 days. These people had not come back in 180 days. And they were unsubscribed to their email list, because we can use that as a filter for our targeting. So they had no way of reaching them really through digital. They were completely defected from the brand, and they got an 800% ROI, an 8x ROI on that campaign of bringing those customers back. To them, it was like new acquisition again, because again, these were long gone. We did another campaign for a popular supplements brand called Obvi. They sell collagen and other supplements. They typically sell a 30-day supply. Okay. On day 90, they targeted customers that had not come back in 90 days. Again, these were people at high risk of defecting. If it's a 30-day supply, you've gone 90 days without coming back, you're at very high risk of defecting from that brand entirely. And recency is such an important indicator of intent to buy again. You've got to get to these people before they're totally lost for good. So they hit people that were 90 to 120 days old and got a 22x return on that campaign. So, like, wow, really, really good ROI on these campaigns, because we're making sure that the audiences are really relevant, really targeted, and we kind of know best practices. We've done thousands of these campaigns. We know what works, and we know how to set it up so that you're targeting the people most likely to respond and get you a really good ROI. And then we just keep expanding from there, just like any other marketing campaign. Start with like the low-hanging fruit, and then continue to expand from there. And because we're integrated with Shopify, we can track the ROI of all these different audiences independently. So we can say, what's the difference between people that hadn't bought in 90 to 120 days versus 120 to 150 versus 150 to 180 versus people that bought once before versus people that bought 2 or more times before? How do all these different cohorts of audiences respond to direct mail? Let's track each of them and see the ROI of each of them. And then we can continue to dial in and optimize those campaigns to make sure that you're only targeting the folks that respond really well and get you a good ROI.
Interesting. And so you mentioned something kind of key there, is that you're able to reach the folks who have unsubscribed from your email list via direct mail marketing. But there's, how do I ask this question? There's a lot of laws in place to kind of protect consumers and recipients of, those email campaigns. That's why there has to be an unsubscribe button for all of your emails. But you can't like unsubscribe from somebody's direct mail list. I mean, so, or can you? And I just don't know how. Can you?
So you would like call the company or email the company and ask to be taken off, but there's not the same sort of compliance and regulations with direct mail lists as there are with email lists. So that's kind of again one of the key differences. So you can hit 100% of your customers with a direct mail campaign. It's not an opt-in. There's not a canned spam compliance aspect to it.
Okay.
So you can ask to be taken off the list, and we do have customers that do that. I would say it is a fraction of a percent. Like, how many people do you know actually call a company and say, I don't want to receive another
just trash
piece of
it.
direct mail? Right. So you can do that, and we can filter those people out so you're not annoying them when they ask to be taken off. But literally, I can probably count the number of people on two hands out of millions and millions of cards that have gone out. So yeah, you can. That's kind of the key thing is you look at your email open rates for e-commerce. They're typically 20-25%. That's 75-80% of the people that are still subscribed to the list that are not open, that are not engaging with it. Never mind the ones that have unsubscribed at that point or never subscribed in the first place. Whereas you can reach 100% of those people with a direct mail campaign.
Okay. And I guess that was the question I was really getting at was, is there any kind of compliance that they need to be aware of? So in theory, a brand could send out, I doubt anybody would recommend this, 100 mailers, like one a day over 100 days to everybody on their mailing list and not get in any kind of trouble. I'm sure that would increase their chance of getting a phone call to be removed from their list. Yeah. But in theory, they could do that. There's nothing wrong with that, essentially.
Correct. You could do that. Okay. No issue with that.
So then kind of moving into a conversation about PostPilot specifically, because I think this is going to be unique to your solution, how many different kinds of mailers can an e-commerce business have ready to go out? So like if you're a supplements brand, like you said, all right, I want to remind Francois after 35 days that he hasn't re-upped. And then also maybe an abandoned cart, and also we have this new product line, or, how many different kinds can you trigger out?
So essentially it's unlimited. You could have not only as many different types of campaigns, as many different audience segments broken out as individual campaigns, as many different creative types as you want. So I could have a different campaign that says, Francois, I know you bought product A, so I want to target you with a campaign promoting product B. Or you could say, Francois, I know that you haven't bought in 30 days, so I want to make this type of offer to you, versus I know you haven't bought in 90 days, so I want to make a more aggressive offer to you because you're more likely to have defected after 90 days versus 30 days. So you can have as many different variations because they're individually personalized and done on demand as you meet that criteria. We can create essentially unlimited. We say start with kind of the low-hanging fruit. These win-back campaigns are probably the most common starting point to say, you've bought from us before, you have not bought from us again within the expected time frame. We're going to trigger a card to go out to you to bring you back. Abandoned carts, also really common. Cross-sell or second purchase campaign. You're a new customer. We want to immediately get you to make a second purchase by pushing you into this. VIP and loyalty type campaigns. Customer makes their 5th purchase from us. Immediately trigger a card that says, Francois, thank you so much for being a loyal customer. Really appreciate it. You're important to us. And also as a thank you, here's like a gift to come back on your next purchase, $10 off or whatever it is. So those are kind of some of the core retention type and post-purchase type campaigns. We're also launching a new feature, which is allows you to target customers where you've acquired their email address, but they haven't purchased from you yet. Mm-hmm. So we obviously have your physical address when you make a purchase from that brand. You've given them your shipping address, so we know we have that address on file. In this case, if you have got just their email address, they've opted into your email list, but they haven't converted yet, we can scrub that email address against a database of physical addresses. And if we get a match, we can then target that customer with a physical postcard, even though they've never bought from you before. So it's a new customer acquisition tool, which is something that brands are really, really excited about.
Well, and what about in situations where people move? Because I get more mail than I can shake a stick at my apartment. I swear there's a new name that comes into my mailbox every week. And I'm like, how many people lived here? And why are they still listed? So like in those situations, how are you confirming if it's maybe somebody that you're trying to win back that hasn't ordered in a while, that you're not just sending mailers and kind of throwing money away, advertising to somebody who actually isn't who you intend?
Sure. So a couple ways. One, we scrub every card against the USPS. There's like a validation service. So if they have something on file that says this customer is no longer at this address, or there's a low likelihood of this address still being valid, we'll filter that out before the card ever goes out, so you won't pay for it. And then we also use recency as a key factor. We have our own algorithm that we've been optimizing to get us the highest levels of accuracy in ensuring that the address that we're sending to is the most current and a recent address. And recency is a key factor in that. So
okay,
if the last time we've seen indicators that you're at an address is like years ago, we'll probably not even attempt to send that card. If we know that there's been recent activity that shows you're still at that address, we can use that to say we have a high level of confidence that you're still there and it's worth sending you the card. Because for us, it's exactly right. Our goal is not to send the most cards out. Our goal is to make sure that you get a great ROI on the campaign, because that's what's going to get you to keep sending and keep coming back. If we send a bunch of cards that all go to undeliverable addresses, or people have moved, or they just don't get a good response, that's terrible. Like we don't want that. You're never gonna send another card. So as long as our goal and everything we do on the tech side is to make sure that we're giving high confidence, high probability of getting a campaign and getting a response from that customer using our targeting.
Fantastic. Francois, did you have a question?
Yeah. So we've talked at length about sort of this post-purchase process. And I know you advised against using it in sort of the pre-purchase by just sending out at scale across, let's say, 10 different zip codes. But is there ever a scenario where you would advise that they do test out just a mass postcard or direct mail campaign?
Yeah. So it's tough. I would say we always recommend starting lower funnel first. So even if it's just the retargeting of the email addresses, at least in that case, they've shown intent, right? They've raised their hand and said, it's your site. I'm actually interested in what you're offering. I've even given you my email address. Much higher likelihood to convert that customer. The brands that are sending kind of blanket direct mail campaigns and there are ways to build models, and we do some of that as well, where we build lookalikes and things like that to try and target a relevant audience. But it's still really hard, and it takes continuous optimization, continuous investment in learning, and it works better if you already have a lot of brand awareness. So when you think about a lot of the campaigns, those anonymous campaigns you're getting to current resident Lisa, in most cases, they're from brands that you probably know. They might not be relevant to you specifically, but these are brands with big marketing budgets. It's Casper, it's Pottery Barn, it's Williams Sonoma, it's Warby Parker. It's brands that are marketing across a ton of channels, have a lot of brand awareness, and direct mail is one additional channel for them to reach eyeballs, continue to reinforce their brand across multiple touch points. And ultimately, they think about it in terms more holistically, in terms of here's my total marketing spend. I'm spreading it across a bunch of these channels, and here's the dollars that I'm getting in from that. It's harder to say, I am selling my brand of bed linens that nobody really knows about. I have, 10,000 customers, but everybody wants bed linens, right? So why don't I just send it to every household like that? Because I have a product that people want, but nobody's ever heard of you. That is a very tough campaign to make work profitably. If you want to say, I expect a high ROI on that direct mail campaign, and that's the only thing I'm doing to reach these people, that's going to be really tough. So, that's why we want to set people up for success, and that's why we don't recommend it as a starting point.
Got it.
Yeah. That sounds right. I think the only instance in which I could think that might have a solid return is like a new restaurant opens and you're sending it to the zip code that you're in with
just
a
for
coupon.
some awareness.
Totally.
Yeah, more like
that's different. You're a restaurant. Oh, you're a dry cleaner. You're a roofing guy or girl, and you work on a very specific narrow area, and you want to reach those people and bring awareness to them. Absolutely. But you want to send a national direct mail campaign for your bedding company or your mattress company or your apparel brand to people that have never heard from you. Like that's expensive and difficult.
Yeah, probably not going to work, like you said. Well, Michael, thank you so much. It's very clear that you guys have a super powerful, sophisticated tool that would work for definitely a lot of e-commerce businesses. But what does kind of a best fit client look like to work with you guys?
Yeah, so best fit is typically a 7 to 9 figure Shopify brand. We work with other e-commerce and direct-to-consumer brands as well, but Shopify is like the tightest integration we have, so that's ideal. And typically it's a brand that has a natural opportunity for retention or replenishment. So consumable products are fantastic fits. Cosmetic items, supplements, food and beverage, these things where you're expecting the customer to come back and you need to ensure that they come back and it's very profitable for them to come back. If you're selling one and done products, end of the world kit, something like that, like survival kit, like you're sending them a postcard is not going to magically make them buy from you again. But as long as you have something, even apparel brands and other kind of accessories and things like that, where you have an assortment, you have new products coming out frequently, you have a sale coming up, then you need to make sure that you want to reach all of those customers instead of just a fraction of them that you're reaching through digital. Like those are the brands that are going to do really well with these campaigns.
Awesome. And then where can people find more information about PostPilot?
Yeah, so postpilot.com. You can email me directly, Michael at postpilot.com. Happy to chat. And for your listeners, if you go to postpilot.com/GFO, it stands for Godfather Offer. It is an offer you can't refuse. Like we know what works. We have an in-house team of creative and strategists that will set this up, that know how to set this up, and will do all of the work for you. And we'll do it for you at no charge, and we'll send the first batch of postcards on our dime, because we know that it will work, and then we know you're going to want to come back and keep sending. So GFO, Godfather Offer.
That's awesome.
That got me.
Yep.
I love that. We will definitely be sure to put that in the description of the audio and the video so everybody can check that out. And then also just the regular website, www.postpilot.com, on the screen, and also will be in the description. That's amazing. Michael, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Lisa, Francois, great to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And have a fabulous weekend. And for everybody who tuned in today, thank you so much. If you guys liked what you heard, be sure to give us a thumbs up, comment with your thoughts, share this episode with your friends, subscribe to the show, and be sure to turn on those notifications. And that way you never miss a conversation with leaders in supply chain and e-commerce. Look, y'all, it's a Friday before a holiday weekend. I'm out of here. She's turned off for the day. We're done.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.